You are about to discover a fascinating artifact, an incantation bowl. These objects, found in large quantities in ancient Mesopotamia, date from approximately 500 to 700 AD. Made of clay and with dimensions similar to a cereal bowl, these bowls were covered with magical formulas, as the name suggests, incantation bowls. The inscriptions on them aimed to ward off demons and protect individuals from misfortune. The incantations were written in a spiral pattern, starting at the edge and ending at the center of the bowl, where there was often an illustration of a demon, frequently depicted with chains, symbolizing the containment of evil. Curiously, some of these illustrations focused on female demons. While most people are familiar with the story of Adam and Eve, there is a lesser-known aspect of medieval Jewish folklore suggesting that Eve was not Adam's first wife. Before her, there was Lilith, a demonic figure. But who was Lilith? What is the origin of this legend and why did ancient communities turn to magic to protect themselves from her? Before we dive into the intriguing story of Lilith, the mysterious demonic figure from medieval Jewish folklore, please like this video and comment below on what you know or would like to discover about her. Your support helps us bring more fascinating and mysterious content. So, give us a thumbs up, share your thoughts, and get ready to uncover the secrets of Mesopotamian origins, Lilu and Lilith demons. The origin of the name Lilith is often attributed to words from ancient Mesopotamian languages. The Sumerian word Lu, or Lilitu, can mean wind, spirit, or demon. In Akkadian and Babylonian languages, Lilu and Lilitu refer to spirits or demons, with Lilu generally denoting male demons and Lilitu female ones. Lilith is thus associated with a class of spiritual beings that were part of the pantheon of demons and spirits in Mesopotamian cultures. Although the details regarding how these beings were viewed in ancient Mesopotamia, there are ancient Akkadian medical texts that attribute various diseases and physical conditions to the actions of these demons. In the records, these demons typically targeted individuals of the opposite sex. Lilu attacked women, and Lilitu attacked men. For example, one medical text describes symptoms similar to convulsions and attributes them to these demons. The text details that when a state of confusion affects a person, they roll their eyes and blood flows from their nose. It then explains that if the victim is a woman, the responsible demon is Lilu, and if it is a man, it is Lilitu. Another text mentions fevers and describes that when fever affects a person, they continuously scream, my entrails, open and close their eyes, have a fever, and the tips of their fingers and toes are cold. If you try to make the patient speak, they do not respond. This document attributes such symptoms to the influence of Lilu. These ancient medical records give us an intriguing view of how demons were used to explain diseases and unusual behaviors, reflecting the beliefs and fears of Mesopotamian society. Ancient Mesopotamian texts suggest that the Lilith demons were seen as unhappy ghosts of young people who died prematurely, doomed to wander discontentedly on earth. These demons, especially the spirits of young women who died before having sexual relations or children, were considered responsible for terrorizing young men. One text describes how the Lilitu penetrates a man's mind, referring to a young Lilitu as a wandering spirit associated with negative sexuality. The description suggests that these entities were seen as succubi, female demons who seduce and have sexual relations with men while they sleep. Scholar Elise Zuckerman proposes that these demons represented the personification of sexual envy, spirits of people who never found sexual satisfaction in life. As a ritual solution to deal with these spirits, a symbolic marriage was performed. The ritual involved creating figures of a male and female Lilith demon, followed by a wedding ceremony between the two figures. The goal was to make the demons lose interest in their human victims, bringing peace and protection to the living. These practices reveal how ancient societies dealt with their fears and anxieties through symbolic rituals, reflecting an attempt to control the incomprehensible and find order amidst chaos. Previously, some scholars believed that the so-called Burni relief, a Babylonian representation of a divine feminine figure, depicted Lilith. Today, most agree that the figure is likely this or another goddess. It is important to note that we are discussing a type or category of demon, not a singular entity called Lilith. This remained true for most of its history. Only in later Jewish traditions does Lilith begin to be defined as a distinct character with her own narrative. Even at this early stage, there are named figures that seem to have influenced the later development of the unique figure of Lilith. Have you heard of a mysterious figure that tormented mothers and children in ancient Mesopotamia? What led a goddess to be feared to the point of inspiring the creation of numerous protective amulets? And how did this entity evolve into one of the most intriguing figures in mythology? Demons of Mesopotamia, who were they? In the Jewish epic poem titled Gilgamesh and the Rupu Tree, dated to around 2000 BCE, a female demon named Lilith is mentioned, although the exact translation is a matter of debate among scholars. What is more consensual is that the figure of Lilith was inspired by the Mesopotamian demon goddess Lamashtu, famous for attacking babies and women during childbirth. Archaeologists have found numerous amulets in ancient Mesopotamia created to protect people from Lamashtu. She is often depicted with a combination of human and animal features, such as a lion or bird head, a body covered in feathers, and claws on her feet. The charms especially highlight the threat that Lamashtu posed to mothers in labor and newborns. An ancient Assyrian charm describes Lamashtu in relation to stillborns. She is fierce, terrifying, divine daughter of Anu, a she-wolf. She intercepts the fleeing young and completely destroys the little ones. Therefore, in this older layer of Lilith's story, we find a strong focus on the dangers of childbirth and infancy, extremely risky periods in ancient times. Although it is difficult to reconstruct precise statistics from antiquity, Assyriologist Jonathan Will estimates that infant mortality was approximately 20 to 30% in the pre-modern period. Maternal mortality was also alarmingly high, reflecting the significant risks women faced during childbirth. Exploring this ancient story, we can see how the concerns and fears of Mesopotamian society shaped the figure of Lilith, transforming her from a demonic entity associated with danger and fear into a distinct character with a rich and complex narrative. The demons Lilitu and Lamashtu emerged in ancient Mesopotamia as personifications of humanity's deepest fears, reflecting anxieties about the vulnerability of women and children during the most critical moments of life. In later Jewish mythology, the figure of Lilith appears to have been formed from these entities, combining the threat of Lamashtu to infants with the negative sexual connotation associated with Lilith spirits. But how did this transition occur? How did we move from Mesopotamian demonology to the Lilith we know in ancient Jewish mythology? This is a fascinating journey of transformation and cultural adaptation, and the story of Lilith connects with these fears and superstitions. What can we learn about Mesopotamian society by studying these symbols and myths? How does the figure of Lilith represent a cultural adaptation of our deepest human fears? Join us on this journey through time as we explore the evolution of the figure of Lilith, from her roots as a symbol of ancient fears to becoming an iconic character with her own narrative. Lilith in the Hebrew Bible. In terms of meaning, the story of Lilith as Adam's first wife has no basis in the Hebrew Bible. The word Lilith appears only once in Isaiah 34, where the God of Israel takes vengeance on the kingdom of Edom by turning it into a desolate desert. Verse 14 describes this devastation: a land inhabited by wild animals and demonic creatures. Wild cats will meet with hyenas, and demon goats will call to each other, there too Lilith will rest. The text does not provide further details about Lilith, assuming that readers were already familiar with her. This suggests that Lilith was known as a type of desert demon, or at least an entity that inhabited arid places. However, the translation of this verse is controversial. Some scholars argue that Lilith here does not refer to a specific demon but to a type of demon similar to Lilitu from ancient Mesopotamia, and that it should be translated as Al-Lilith. Some suggest that Isaiah does not mention a demon but rather a nocturnal creature or a bird, such as an owl. This divergence in interpretation is evident in different Bible translations. The New International Version translates the word as creatures of the night, the English Standard Version as night bird, and the King James Version as owl. On the other hand, the New Revised Standard Version tends to reflect the majority opinion among scholars. Interestingly, the supernatural translation quickly gained popularity. When the Hebrew Bible was translated into Greek, ancient translators rendered the word Lilith as a type of centaur. In the Latin translation, it was interpreted as Lamia, a Greco-Roman mythological figure known for killing babies. Thus, despite modern uncertainty about this passage, in antiquity, it was widely believed that the verse referred to a supernatural creature, possibly a demon. If I told you there is a demon whose story intertwines with the legends of ancient Mesopotamia and extends into Second Temple Judaism, who is this entity that, for some, represents a deadly threat to children and, for others, an adversary of fertility and motherhood? Why is Lilith, such an enigmatic figure, mentioned both in the Dead Sea Scrolls and in the Talmud? In Second Temple and Rabbinic Judaism, Babylonian accounts from the Bronze and Iron Ages emerge of a type of female demon associated with the death of children and opposed to fertility and motherhood. Often, this figure is represented as a unique entity, like Lamashtu. These representations influence the demonology of Second Temple Judaism. Lilith, in particular, appears both as a specific figure and as a class of demons in the Dead Sea Scrolls. A notable example is found in an exorcism hymn that says, "And I, the wise one, exalt the majesty of your beauty to terrorize and confuse all the spirits of destroyer angels and the bastard spirits, demons, and Lilith." Here, God is invoked to drive away a series of evil spirits. The term, bastard spirits, likely refers to the descendants of angels and humans, as described in the Book of Enoch. Lilith is mentioned as a singular entity, though details about her conception by the Dead Sea Scrolls community are scarce. In various ancient manuscripts, Lilith continues to be viewed as a demonic figure by Jews. In the Great Isaiah Scroll found in Qumran, Isaiah 34 verse 14 uses the term Lilith in the plural, indicating a category of demons rather than a specific entity. However, evidence from that period is limited. It is in the early centuries of Rabbinic Judaism that Lilith gains more prominence. The Babylonian Talmud mentions Lilith several times, describing her as a female demon with wings and long hair. One rabbi even suggests that sleeping alone at night could result in being captured by Lilith. But concern about Lilith was not restricted to the rabbis. A fascinating set of evidence comes from incantation bowls. These bowls, used by communities in Mesopotamia such as Jews, Mandeans, and Christians, reveal how Lilith was seen as a demonic enemy in everyday life. Most of these bowls were written in Jewish Babylonian Aramaic, showing a significant overlap between rabbinic texts and these artifacts from the same period as the Talmud. It is possible that the rabbis were the ritual specialists behind these incantations. These bowls, found primarily in central and southern Iraq, indicate that the Jewish community of late antiquity used specific rituals to protect themselves from Lilith. In many of these formulas, we find what can be called symbolic divorce documents, where the practitioner separates from an entity called Lilith. A typical example declares, "This is the document of divorce from Lilith, both from male Lilith and female Lilith. You are dismissed, your mother is Lilith Padad. Depart from this house, this dwelling, and from the body of Hormes, son of Ima and his wife." From this text, we understand that a man named Hormes was concerned about Lilith demons, so he had this bowl made to protect his house, himself, and his wife. These documents refer to Lilith generically, treating her as a type of demon rather than a specific entity. In this invocation, a specific Lilith is mentioned, Lilith Padad, similar to other demons in Jewish and Christian mythology that have proper names like Beelzebub or Asmodeus. It is interesting to note that Lilith is a figure that can be both masculine and feminine with roots dating back to the Bronze and Iron Ages in Mesopotamia. However, researcher Nama Vasni points out that the gender of Lilith demons is often ambiguous and can change depending on the victim. A Jewish invocation clearly illustrates this idea. This amulet, intended to ward off the Liliths haunting Ephra's house, describes these entities as violent, trampling, whipping, and mutilating. They appear to men as women and to women as men. The formula written against the evil, whatever its name, suggests that Ephra believed the Liliths were demons capable of shape-shifting. So far, we have explored various aspects from ancient Mesopotamia to the early centuries of Rabbinic Judaism. Over these 2,500 years, we notice an impressive persistence in the belief in demonic figures that attack babies or sexually victimize people. But something intriguing is missing from all this evidence: the notion that Lilith was Adam's first wife. So where did this idea come from? What is the true story behind Adam's first wife? How do the two creation narratives in Genesis relate to Adam's first wife, Lilith? This myth emerged in the early medieval period, first appearing in the alphabet of Ben Sira, an anonymous Jewish text dated between the 7th century and the year 1000. This text expands on the Eden narrative found in Genesis, describing how God created Lilith from the dust of the earth just as he did with Adam. However, Lilith challenges Adam's authority, refusing to lie beneath him during intercourse, arguing that since both were made from the same earth, they are equal. When Adam refuses to relent, Lilith pronounces the ineffable name of God and flies off to the Red Sea. In the account, God creates Lilith from the dust of the earth, just as he did with Adam. However, Lilith challenges Adam's authority, refusing to lie beneath him during sex. She argues that since they were both made from the same earth, they are equals. When Adam refuses to yield, Lilith utters the ineffable name of God and flies away to the Red Sea. 3 angels are sent to follow her and bring her back, but Lilith refuses to comply. When they threaten to drown her, she responds, "Leave me alone, I was created to cause illness to babies." This passage provides a mythical explanation for her association with infanticide, justifying the use of amulets against Lilith. Eventually, Lilith makes a pact, promising to spare babies who wear an amulet. In the alphabet of Ben Sira, Lilith is portrayed as a malevolent and defiant figure, an anti-mother who kills human babies while giving birth to hundreds of demons. But how did this legend arise? The origin of this legend can be traced back to ancient beliefs that Lilith, or Lilith, in general, were responsible for killing babies and were associated with negative sexuality, like succubi. These beliefs led to the creation of symbolic divorce papers to expel her malevolent presence. The idea of Lilith as Adam's wife, however, seems to stem from a perceived gap in the narrative of the book of Genesis. In the account, God creates Lilith from the dust of the earth, just as he did with Adam. However, Lilith challenges Adam's authority, refusing to lie beneath him during sex. She argues that since they were both made from the same earth, they are equals. When Adam refuses to yield, Lilith utters the ineffable name of God and flies away to the Red Sea. 3 angels are sent to follow her and bring her back, but Lilith refuses to comply. When they threaten to drown her, she responds, "Leave me alone, I was created to cause illness to babies." This passage provides a mythical explanation for her association with infanticide, justifying the use of amulets against Lilith. Eventually, Lilith makes a pact, promising to spare babies who wear an amulet. In the alphabet of Ben Sira, Lilith is portrayed as a malevolent and defiant figure, an anti-mother who kills human babies while giving birth to hundreds of demons. But how did this legend arise? The origin of this legend can be traced back to ancient beliefs that Lilith, or Lilith, in general, were responsible for killing babies and were associated with negative sexuality, like succubi. These beliefs led to the creation of symbolic divorce papers to expel her malevolent presence. The idea of Lilith as Adam's wife, however, seems to stem from a perceived gap in the narrative of the book of Genesis. Lilith gained prominence in the Jewish mystical tradition known as Kabbalah. Various Kabbalistic myths involve Lilith, but one of the most notable is her association with Samael, a malevolent figure resembling Satan in Christianity. In this mythological context, Samael is not simply a second husband after Adam, but is described as Lilith's primordial partner. As explained by the scholar of Jewish mysticism Joseph Dan, this creates an interesting parallel between the pairs Adam and Eve and Lilith and Samael, highlighting the dualities present in the Kabbalistic narrative. Have you ever wondered how a mythological figure can transform from a villain to an empowerment icon in just a few decades? And what makes a name steeped in history and mystery rise surprisingly in popularity on baby name lists? Do you want to know why Lilith continues to inspire and challenge, and how she became such a relevant figure in modern culture? Lilith gained prominence in the Jewish mystical tradition known as Kabbalah. Various Kabbalistic myths involve Lilith, but one of the most notable is her association with Samael, a malevolent figure resembling Satan in Christianity. In this mythological context, Samael is not simply a second husband after Adam, but is described as Lilith's primordial partner. As explained by the scholar of Jewish mysticism Joseph Dan, this creates an interesting parallel between the pairs Adam and Eve and Lilith and Samael, highlighting the dualities present in the Kabbalistic narrative. Have you ever wondered how a mythological figure can transform from a villain to an empowerment icon in just a few decades? And what makes a name steeped in history and mystery rise surprisingly in popularity on baby name lists? Do you want to know why Lilith continues to inspire and challenge, and how she became such a relevant figure in modern culture?
The feminist reimagining of Lilith transcended Jewish communities and gained prominence, especially among contemporary pagan circles. A quick search on YouTube reveals modern witches sharing practical guides on how to incorporate Lilith into their daily ritual practices. This new positive interpretation reflects a broader movement in society. Moreover, the name Lilith has grown in popularity since the early 2000s. According to major baby name websites, Lilith was around the 9th position among the most popular names for girls in 2010 and jumped to an even higher position in 2022. Therefore, for most of her 4,000-year history, Lilith was seen as a malevolent and dangerous figure, especially for women. However, in the 21st century, we are witnessing a significant turnaround in her narrative. Lilith has not only proven to be a surprisingly enduring character, but also highly adaptable, resonating in new ways with the public. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any new content. Share it with your friends and leave a comment telling us what interested you the most or what you'd like to see in the next videos. Your participation is really important to us. See you next time, and thanks for watching.